welcome to Business Daily on Trust TV. My name is Chamun Dabeng. Let's talk numbers. We're starting off with the stock market this morning. You're welcome back, and once again, my name is Chamun Dabeng. Well, Christmas and the New Year is so close that you can actually taste it on the tip of your tongue. Well, as the Yuletide approaches, Nigerians all over are making trips to spend the Christmas period with their loved ones. But transportation cost has hiked. Joining me to talk about this is business developer Collins Nwosu and executive chair of Blue Whale Transport, Simon Ilya. You're welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Great to have you. First question, any plans to travel?
From a house to a restaurant, perhaps.
What about you, sir?
Certainly, I have to take care of business.
So basically you're the executive chair of a company that does transportation, but yet you can't travel.
So
That's actually really interesting. Right. Now, this hike in prices, now what do you think are the factors that are contributing to, the skyrocketing of the cost of transportation? Let me start off with you.
Okay, it's a pleasure to be here, and nice to meet you again. Like you rightly said, the numbers traveling now is quite high. Mm-hmm. And given the situations we have, looking at the options available to travel, it's quite interesting because the going by air is a whole new thing. Rail, of course, you can always draw some form of conclusion. So roads basically is the mode with which everybody travels, almost everybody. So it's a challenge. Most of the issues we have is centered around the roads, the machines, the vehicles, and of course the personnel, the persons themselves, then most of all the security situations we have. So it's really interesting because at the end of the day, people must travel. And those are the things you confront when you go on the road. And we, given that we serve people, the business itself is some form of, is there, but the actual concerns we have, the people we serve. So yes, it's the options are there, the opportunities are there, the challenges are there, and we try our best as operators to ensure that we offer we do what we can and offer the best services, the best environment we can, but it all boils back to those in charge of managing those issues I've mentioned earlier. I think so much more to start from, but I think I'd like to put it here.
All right, Mr. Collins.
Yeah.
I always like to step back a bit and look at a historical movement. The essence is when you take spot assessments of a thing, there's a likelihood to miss a few points. So from 2009 to date, there has been a continual increase in cost of fares to date. In fact, between June of last year and this year, in fact, from 2019 to date, if you check from June to June, it's been almost 33% increase in the costs each household spends. So we're saying that as of 2009, households were spending, Nigeria's transport costs spend was almost less than, it was about a few billions, almost $1 trillion, 800 billion or thereabouts. As of today, is almost 14 trillion on transportation. That's huge. So the question is, what has caused this year-on-year increase? it's not just about this Christmas. It's not just about this.
It's been a trend.
It's been a trend, and that's the trend that we need to look to halt. So that's where I'm coming from. I'm saying, okay, so what are the things? Unemployment is high. Inflation is going up the roof. So that's to say that there are more and the population is increasing. So people need to move. The means by which they would move is now constricted, of course, because we don't have enough transport systems. The roads that we have are a challenge even to the transporters themselves. The cost of bringing in the vehicles, the equipment that they need to transport people is also cost, personnel, that. So all those things begin to accumulate, and we're seeing the backlash. So I think we have to start dealing with it from the root. We have to start looking at, can we make it easier for transporters to actually help transport people and goods?
All right, before we get into all of that, before we start to talk about road travel, let's take a look at this video, this report that was put together by Nafisa Abdel-Al on air travel.
With the fast approaching Yuletide season, the cost of flight tickets are beginning to skyrocket, and it's telling on travelers. We are now here at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport to speak with some of these passengers on these developments.
We have had a lot of high traffic for about 2 weeks now. This should be the consequence of the insecurity along the road. And based on that, it becomes an opportunity for the airline to hike their price. Though we have a lot of other new aircraft that are just coming. Ordinarily, when new aircraft come, price tends to go down because of competition. But now, whether you are coming, even if you come with Molue, now the price is as high as 100,000, 90,000.
My experience was horrible. Coming from Lagos to Abuja, I paid 29,700. Now I'm going back to Abuja, from Abuja to Lagos. I don't know why I should pay 49,000. That's exploitation. I don't know. The reason I don't know, and upon that, it got to be delayed. And sometimes the flight gets cancelled.
Today is a very, very bad day for me because on getting here, I missed my flight 30 minutes before the flight time. It's actually supposed to be for 45 minutes, but it was actually man-made because at the airport toll gate, to get into the toll gate, we spent about 45 minutes there. So on getting here, nobody considered us. We were more than 25 people who missed their flight on Ibom Airways today. And that's very wrong. I think, for example, if you have reasons to delay your flight, you give us your reasons, probably weather condition and all that. But hereby, I wasn't going to miss my flight, if not for the toll gates, what happened at the toll gates. So somehow it's not a coincidence that more than 25 people missed their flight in a particular flight today.
Well, it's a great experience to me. I'm surprised, even for me to get ticket. I've been hanging here for more than 2 hours, and I'm surprised the ticket price is higher. And of course, it's a big challenge to me. I've been hanging here in the airport for more than 5 hours, waiting if there will be a chance for me. And of course, I'm surprised. I said that this country is supposed to also look at what is going on now. Many customers, I think, is hanging here.
Increments in the cost of flight tickets, delayed flights, miscommunication between some of these airlines and their passengers are some of the concerns these travelers face on a daily, but more so now in this Yuletide season. They urge the government to enforce some sort of regulation in order to curb this menace. Efforts to get comments of airline operators were, however, not successful.
All right, so that was on air travel right there. We got to hear from passengers, people trying to get from one place to another. And in the video, a lot of them were actually complaining about the price hike in the in the cost of air travel. And one particular lady talked about how she had paid from Abuja to Lagos 20,000 plus, and then returning from Lagos to Abuja, it was now at about 40,000 thereabout. And it's literally double the price already. And a lot of them were talking about how the government needs to come in and actually regulate these prices. And not only that, they talked about delays, they talked about cancellations. And we've actually seen this particular trend where people come out and they're now posting on their social media and talking about how they had to literally sleep in the airport. so that they could actually get their flights, because their flights were either delayed or they were cancelled. There are a lot of situations that are going wrong right now when it comes to air travel. Now, what can be done by the government or the NCAA in order to fix these problems?
Let me quickly say that from air travel, the perspective of air travel, there are already laid down rules. So one of the things that happens to us as Nigerians is that we do not try to take up what our right is. So if your flight is delayed by a certain time, there's an expectation from the airline. It is written in the rules. The government has already made that provision. If they now extend beyond a particular time, there are certain things that are supposed to be done. If they cancel, then they're supposed to provide you a refund on your tickets. They're supposed to provide you alternatives, accommodation, and all of that. But the thing is that passengers are either not aware or they don't have the time to say, there's no need for me to do that. So we need more passengers to become conscious of their rights and then enforce those rights. That's the first place to start, because already government, this used to be something that was, it was a trend, and then government saw fit to say, hey, this is what we should put in place. It's now for us as citizens to stand up and take advantage of the rules that have been laid down to make life easier. That would put certain people on the edge. It may be slow, but if you have one person, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people getting into that system and then getting justice for their complaints, which is the expectation, then we would have more people stepping up to the plate, and then we would have the service providers, taking note that, if we do this, the Nigerians will step up and the passengers will step up.
Well, there's always the question of the process. How long will it take? How difficult is it going to be? And I feel like to a certain extent is the factor that puts a lot of Nigerians off when it comes to pursuing these things. So even for Nigerians who actually know, like you said, they would be like, just let it go.
So it's precedence. We just have to decide that enough is enough. If you're not tired of the current situation, then it's going to continue. So until we stand up and say, as Nigerians, as passengers, as people who are in the system that were tired, then we will not pursue it. So let's pursue it. The thing is to set the right precedents. If we get one, then the second one becomes easier. The third one becomes easier. Then it becomes a culture to know that, hey, if you do this, the passengers are not going to sit back and relax. But because we're all chilling and nobody has the time, we're all hustling, we're all trying to, make sure that we don't rock the boat. We need to make your money. I don't have time to be going to court or pursuing some. Then we would continue to suffer.
The problem will always continue. Yeah. All right, Mr. Simon, please, let's hear from you.
Yeah. I think I love to concentrate on the land transport where I work and manage. There are lots of issues that when you want to look at the rate at which operators charge customers, there are a lot of factors that drive such rates. One, the cost of maintaining those machines, buses, etc., depending on which kind of vehicles operators use. Also, the security itself and the compliance to the COVID stuff, which has become very prominent now. It's of course at the center of our operations now. Also, you want to look at now, actually in our business, particularly the company where I manage, we've given the right to customers to demand for excellent service. We place it in their hands. There are many tools we use to do that. However, I like to concentrate on the general, the global overview. The rates, for example, if you want to travel from here over a period of 100 kilometers, normally, naturally, there's a standard rate, which is calculated based on the fuel consumption, the wear and tear, etc., etc. Now, those are assuming the roads, the security situations, everything is put in place to work normal. You ordinarily charge a reasonable figure, and it will remain like that for a long time. Before now, after festivities, it will matter less. But as these festivities approach and the roads are really bad, there are some mischievous or untoward character by some operators, of course. You have deviance here and there. But above all, you have most of those who operate these businesses are good people. They are concerned about the welfare of the passengers, yes, because in the first place, you exist because the customer is there. The moment you put the customer aside, you are finished, of course. And once the customer begin to rebel against you, I can tell you it's not going to be funny. So as much as you want to make money, you want to also take into account a lot of issues around pricing. But you are constrained by the challenges on ground.
Yeah.
I give you an example. Of course, it's a well-known, it's out there in the news. Abuja, Kaduna. To travel via that route, by itself, without the issues we're experiencing now, is an issue by itself. Then when you bring into bear the roads, the security challenges, the machines, you realize that, man, you have to put those things into place, factor them in as you priced, and as you build the rates for customers. So eventually situations like that will come up. Although some people hide behind demand but that's very few people, very few operators do that. Basically, to soften those things, in my opinion, I felt there are some cushioning effects that can be brought to bear, some holidays here and there. I think the strategist guy can always expatiate on that. I believe he must have done extensive research on that. The issue around those little holidays will go a long way at allowing us to offload some of the issues we have, like the cost of maintenance of a bus, a typical Toyota bus.
Due to bad roads,
exactly,
traffic.
Absolutely. If a bus is to last for probably 2 years, now you have less than a year to start maintenance, heavy maintenance, not just minor, big time. So you can imagine an operator who is already in business, because we are businessmen too, by the way. We try to create value, and also it should reward us and not just run around. I mean, yes, when you create that value, create opportunity, you do business, you want to also earn a living. After all, you need to live for business to take place tomorrow. So at the end of the day, all those things, by the time you bring them together, definitely an operator has no choice. It's constrained.
All right, so can you give us a little bit of history, like looking at the prices that you started off with and where they are today?
Yeah, when we started sometime about 9 years ago, approximately 9 years ago, we came with the value. We discovered the issues on the roads. Then the roads were fairly okay, the security were fairly okay, everything okay. So we said, okay, let's have a markup, reasonable markup, compete well in the marketplace, put forward a particular value, which is safety. And we said, we now did a little research and understood that the charges on the road were unfair. So we offered to the customer 8,000 naira, by the way, Abuja just. A whole lot of issues came up, but we said, no, look, we're in business. These guys need to travel, then we do business. So you have to also allow them travel fairly, have a fair deal. So over time, of course, we've been there for a long time. Yes, we remained there around close to 5 years, 6 years. Then the COVID issue came up. Of course, we have to respond. We reduce the number of persons in the bus to cater for the regulations, to allow safety to become a primary issue.
Did that have to force you to increase your prices?
In response to that, we now, so that we can cover our overheads, cover cost of operations, etc., and still make a little token to take home. So now we've moved to 2,000, which we've remained there for also a long time. That's getting to 2 years we've been there. All is in an attempt to ensure that there's a fair deal for the customer. We keep hammering on fair deal. If you have a fair deal when you're home, you believe you've been treated fairly, I trust you always want to come back to do business with us again. So at the heart of our operations, like I pointed out earlier, customer is sitting right at the front. We try to, as much as we can, to concede a couple of things, but there are a lot of constraints too. I've said them earlier on, so much. And of course, in the midst of all this, you have to also build capacity within your system so they deliver on their objectives, and eventually that value is created in a sane environment.
All right. Okay, let me come to Mr. Collins here. Now, it's should I say it's common knowledge that during the holiday periods, whatever holiday it is, you actually see a hike in price when it comes to transportation. Now, this has been something that has trended over the years. Now, do you think that this is an attempt from transport companies to just take advantage and make an extra buck?
The thing is, I can't speak in isolation. I'll have to try as much as possible to be specific. So when you go to establishments like his and others, they have a trend, they have a price range, and those price ranges haven't changed. They continue to charge those prices. So if you're going to a particular place, this is the price. If you're going to this place, this is the price. Where we find adjustments usually is, which happens most times, is because certain things change. So they know security issues become an issue. They have to change routes because some of the roads are really, really bad. So if you had a particular route you were taking from, say, Jos to Abuja, now you have to change that route. It's probably longer, right? Because you still need to make the runs and meet the numbers and cater for increased demands. So some of those things come into play. Right? Then we cannot also take out our minds from the fact that the government has mentioned, we're doing phase deregulation. So you're having certain spikes in fuel prices. And as a business person, they are not going to absorb that cost. They'll pass it on to the passenger.
Of course.
So that's what's happening most times.
It's always the final consumer.
Then we would definitely not take away the fact that this is a period for people to hammer, so to speak. So everybody's going to hammer. The rice seller wants to hammer. Some transporters. For lack
of a better word.
So the transporters themselves too may put an additional market at Christmas for the Christmas topping to the prices. So we see that happening. But for rail has been stable. The only thing is that you're not getting the tickets, and perhaps that's a system issue. If those are cleared, then it makes it easier for people to access tickets. For the airfares, I can't tell you exactly what has happened, but the shift in prices to almost 100,000 naira for a ticket is phenomenal this period. It is way beyond any trend, and it needs to be looked into.
Yeah.
But then, with all of that said, I still go back to the fundamentals. As a country, there are certain things that we need to put in place. If the roads are okay for people to travel on, if we have good roads, the transporters wouldn't spend so much on maintaining the machines, right? And if the cost of bringing in those machines, if it's considered that transport is critical, then the cost of bringing in those equipment will not be so high. So that makes it easy for them to bridge the gap where government is not providing buses and providing transport systems for people to move. If the private sector has chosen to step into this place, then they should be supported, which is not there at the moment to the extent that we believe it should be. But certain things can be done. Can we have better security on the roads? Can we have the roads fixed and these routes established? Even if it's to say, okay, you're traveling from Jos to you're traveling from Abuja to Kaduna or this. Expect this number of stops. Expect that this is if you're traveling, we're going to have say you can have an emergency button if something happens within this place and this place, but the roads will be ready for you to move. That will help transporters. That would also help passengers, because the passengers at the end of the day, the ordinary Nigerian is the person who suffers for it. So it's which one comes first, the egg or the baby? Is it the transporter that is being mischievous? Yeah, the egg or the chick. Yeah. Is it the transporter that is being mischievous, or is it the infrastructure that is not available? Both of these things are not available. Now we have to tackle them, not one only or the other. But again, you cannot take away the Christmas toppings from. I'm not accusing you here, but I'm just saying.
No.
All right, Mr. Simon, what do you have to say on this?
I also want to come in from the angle of the high motorization on our roads, heavy. So, and given those situations, we've actually done there are some team that came to our bus stops and looked right into our system and tried to use it as a case study to kind of develop some alternative way of providing power, energy for our buses and equipment and etc. So one of the things I also discovered, it has been with me all along, but I've never discovered, was look, there are a lot of options that could actually cut down the rates of transportation. That's alternative energy. It's a key thing, although it's going to be not too distant future, but it's going to play a very big role. Recently, I think the Minister of FCT launched some set of buses, and I paid attention to this closely through one of our associations, at CILT. We're there, we participated fully, and we observed. We made, there are a few gaps, but at least there's this, we've taken off. That's the main thing. We've started the journey, and as you began the journey, you also discover gaps, you build, you cover them here and there. So I reduced those things to my business. Of course, everything ends there. We talk everywhere we go, it ends, you have to earn a living, right? So we try to see, okay, among the machines we use, the equipment we use for our system, how do we incorporate those kind of renewable energy into them, such that there's no missing word. If I say the rate will drop, yes, it will drop.
All right.
Yes. So obviously, those are options that are on the table for the future. Who knows? Tomorrow, next year, 2 years, who knows?
All right. So my last question for the day, as we know, fuel subsidy is going off by 2022. Now, how do you think this is going to affect the transportation, sector in 2022?
I've been trying to dodge away from that. It's interesting because there are a lot of things that will bring with it the subsidy stuff, and basically in our own field, which is the transportation, it's something we want to have some level of constancy. We want to know what is happening today, tomorrow, next tomorrow. Will there be fuel at what rate? He mentioned something about the uncertainty of prices. You come here, you want to buy 10 naira, you just move forward. You hear 20 naira, you have no choice. Already you're out of fuel, you need to move. People are move. So we need that to happen. However, the system, the process, the palliative, the issues that goes with it, I think that might be out of our hands. We just want some level of consistency. Let's establish that by Monday we'll buy fuel at XYZ. By Tuesday we'll do the same. Come 1 month after is the same thing, and it will be available for our youth. So we now sit back and like most of the things we do in our system. I keep referring to our system. I hope you understand why I'm doing that. So one of the things we'll be doing is we'll engage our customers, stakeholders, and because in the first place we exist because they are there. So engage them further, and then we can really say one or two things.
All right,
so it's necessary.
All right, so we do have to round up because we have run out of time for today. But yes, the truth is that something needs to be done because it has become, should I say, a really frustrating factor for many Nigerians out there because they do want to be able to spend the Yuletide season with their loved ones, but the cost of transportation has held back quite a few people from doing that. So there is a necessity for the government to step in and fix a lot of the problems that we have today. All right, so we've come to the end of our show for today, and I would like to thank my guests in the studio. Thank you so much, Mr. Collins and Mr. Simon, for being a part of the show. And to all our viewers out there, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to follow us on all our social media platforms. That is Trust TV News. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Just look us up. You'll definitely see us. Well, once again, my name is Chamun Dabeng. Come back again for more Business Daily. Let's talk numbers.